Right off the bat, I just wanted to give a quick warning that I will go over some plot details of the Kurosawa Classic High and Low. I don't plan on spoiling it or giving away any information that would ruin the experience if you have never seen it before. Also, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button while you're here. My goal is to get to 1,000. I want to get monetized on this, smaller channel as well. You'll get more content instead of just the sports content. If I'm making money on both. But yeah, I would really appreciate it if you haven't already hit the subscribe button. I'll try to keep it vague as I do with the spoiler-free section of my movie reviews if you've seen any of those. However, some people are especially spoiler-adverse, and maybe you're just getting around to you're going to see the movie tonight or something like that. Maybe just check out the movie and then come back here. So I'm going to give some plot details away of the movie, but I won't get too spoilery. So without further ado, what is High and Low? What is the controversy surrounding it? What's going on here? Well, High and Low is a film made by legendary filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. It's a film that's widely considered to be a masterpiece. It was made in 1963, and some people consider it to be Kurosawa's best work, which is certainly saying something given his body of work. It kind of got back into the news as it was announced that Spike Lee will be remaking the film. Denzel Washington and Ice Spice are a couple of the people that are apparently on board with this project. So it's a interesting situation. I figured let's dive into it and talk about remakes in general. What's the point of them? When should they exist? And specifically how it relates to the film High and Low. So first, if you haven't seen High and Low, here is the brief synopsis. A businessman for a shoe company is in some trouble as there are people who are, just debates as to how they should handle the shoe company moving forward. Should they kind of start selling cheaper shoes so that way they'll break easier and then you'll be able to sell more? The shoe salesman, the protagonist for the first part of this movie, does not want to do that. And because of that, there is kind of a power struggle, and he's worried he's going to get bought out of the company, and they're going to essentially force him out. He only has so much stock, and so what he decides to do is take on a large amount of debt, betting basically everything against the house and all of the property that he owns in an attempt to buy as much of the company as possible, so therefore he will not get forced out. However, right when he does that, he receives a nefarious phone call claiming that his son has been kidnapped, and unless he pays the ransom money, which is a large sum of money, then his son will be killed. Our protagonist immediately says, no worries, I'm going to pay the money. Who cares if we all go bankrupt? I have to save my son. However, things get more interesting when it's revealed that the kidnapper actually captured the wrong child. It is not our protagonist, the businessman's son. It is actually the driver of the businessman's son who has been kidnapped. And now there is a moral dilemma. Does the businessman decide to essentially lose everything he has, lose all of his company, the big house, all of it? Or does he let a kid potentially die because he decides to keep everything he has? And the first half of the movie is very much him grappling with that. It largely takes place in the big house, and it's really almost shot like a play in many aspects of it. There's a lot of very interesting blocking that goes on throughout this movie, and it's quite frankly just incredibly entertaining. I mean, from minute one, you are glued to the TV screen. Or I guess to the movie theater screen if you're lucky enough to catch it in theaters. The second half of the movie is more of a straightforward police procedural as they try to capture the kidnapper himself, and I won't spoil what decisions get made or what happens from there. But I will say it's an incredibly entertaining movie. And again, to people that think old movies were all boring, this isn't that old in the grand scheme of things. It's a 1963 movie, but certainly an older movie, and up there with some of the most exciting movies you will ever see. Incredibly fascinating to watch. And another thing that just jumps out at you is how much it has to say that is still relevant in 2024. It's very much about classism. The name of the movie, High and Low, is a reference to classism. Very similar to how Parasite uses kind of high and low places to symbolize different class structures. This is what this film does, and you can honestly really see the influence that High and Low had on a film like Parasite or many of other Bong Joon-ho's work, or just work in general you've seen. It's a very influential movie. So as a whole, again, can't relate it, can't recommend it too much more highly than I already have. It's on the Criterion channel. If you're interested, I highly recommend checking it out. I believe you can also rent it on Amazon and all of that stuff. So great movie. Now it's getting remade. Right off the bat, you're going to have people to disagree, right? I mean, anytime a great movie is getting remade, people are going to say, what the hell are you doing? And it kind of makes some sense, right? On face value, when you look at this stuff, it almost always just feels like a cash grab. Even if it isn't, that's just kind of what it usually feels like, because if your goal is to just go out and make a great movie, the great movie already exists. What are you adding to the world by remaking a great film? And so before we even get into Spike Lee and all that stuff, just talking about that itself, what are you adding to the world by remaking a great film? I think you could argue there are times to remake a great movie, maybe. I don't know. I watch a decent amount of older films, and I don't think that there's there are some movies I'm like, you know what, maybe a fresh take on this could be interesting. And even High and Low, I do think you could make a fresh take on this and make it interesting. I don't think it's crazy to think that you could remake it, just kind of modernize a lot of the stuff going on in it. Now, again, part of what makes this movie work is there are no cell phones, again, in certain parts of it. So the fact that there now would be cell phones, I feel like could, just make it a different story, which wouldn't necessarily be horrible. But do I think you could make a very good movie off of this? Absolutely. And in fact, this is based on a book. It's not even just a screenplay that someone wrote to make a movie out of. So certainly, when you view it from that perspective, I don't think it's crazy to think that you could make another movie that's good. And what happens a lot of times with these kind of situations is that someone remakes a classic film, and then what happens is a lot of people say, oh, wow, the remake isn't nearly as good, and it gets more people to watch the original movie. I think a lot of people are going to watch High and Low now because of this controversy, and especially if the remake is bad, or even if it's good, I think that people will rewatch the original. I wonder how many people went back and rewatched the original A Star Is Born, or one of the many remakes after it that happened in the past after A Star Is Born, even when A Star Is Born itself was perceived pretty well, right? So again, it's not replacing High and Low. I do think the concern people would have, and I think the concern that I would have, is are people that maybe would have checked out High and Low now instead, when they search High and Low, are going to see the Spike Lee remake and watch that one instead. But I suppose it goes both ways. I think at the end of the day, if this truly is a passion project, if Spike Lee saw this movie and said, whoa, this is awesome, there's a lot of really great stuff going on in here, and some interesting class stuff going on in here that very much, as I said, could relate to 2024 America, well, maybe he's doing this for the right reasons. And quite frankly, Spike Lee is someone who I think is a brilliant filmmaker and one of the best filmmakers of our time. So I do think that there is the hope that he could actually make this into a really interesting movie and kind of relate it to the classism in America today. And I do think that there could be some valuable meaning in that. However, Spike Lee is just not going to get the benefit of the doubt because he famously, or I guess I should say infamously, remade the film Oldboy, which was a Korean movie, and that was a little bit different because that wasn't a classic. It was kind of an instant classic, but, that wasn't a 1963 movie. The original Oldboy was in 2003. The remake was in 2013, so just 10 years later. So it was kind of, I feel like we've gotten away from this a little bit, but it felt pretty common that a great foreign movie would get made, and then there'd be an American remake of it, just because Americans don't want to read subtitles. I feel like Americans are more willing to read subtitles now, so I don't think we're going to get a Parasite remake, an American Parasite remake soon. I believe there's a TV show, but I think that's a different thing. So, it was kind of a weird situation. And, again, if you haven't seen the Oldboy remake, I haven't seen it either. All I know is it's been perceived very terribly, and most people feel like it was a poor job and felt more of a cash grab than an actual, like, hey, let's try to give our own spin on this style of film. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to do the same thing with High and Low. It's also worth mentioning that just because you're the person who directs a movie doesn't mean you're the person who makes the movie, right? There's a lot of people that are involved, like producers, and there's a lot of people that make a movie. It's not just one person. So who knows? Maybe Spike Lee is going to take on this project as kind of a chance to redeem himself after it went poorly the last time he tried to remake a great movie. But again, you're just not going to get the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's fair for people to have some concerns heading into it. So I guess long story short, how do I feel about this? Is this a movie that should be untouchable? Well, again, I don't know. It's weird, right? Where, in music, songs get covered all the time, and they might be completely different and completely worse than the original, but I still, I'll still listen to certain covers sometimes, right? Because it can be its own thing, or you can, for plays, for example, which I said, High and Low for the first half very much feels like a play. Well, plays are essentially all remakes, right? You're always getting new actors and things like that. So in this scenario, it's weird how movies, I think sometimes we feel a little bit differently about a remake there. And again, I think it's reasonable. I don't love the idea of remakes in general. I kind of like I would rather see just Spike Lee make something new. But if he sees this project, he says, hey, this is cool. I want to make it a Spike Lee joint and make it its own thing this way. And I'm just kind of taking from that to make something that I'm now passionate about. That I don't really have an issue with. I think it all comes down to what reasons are you making the project. So I guess kind of the boring answer is like, is this a movie that should be remade? Maybe. I'm not going to sit here and say that you should never remake a classic film. I think that under the right circumstances, with the right idea, and in the right story, which I can come up with for a movie like this, sure, you could remake a classic film. Is it something that I personally am, super interested in? I guess a little. I'm a little interested in it, but I'm not super interested in it. It's not something I'm crazy about. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. And can this be a bad thing? Can this be like a straight up, like, what the hell are you doing thing? Yes, that's also true. Yes, this could be a cash grab, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I don't know if the real cash grab, where the real money is, hey, let's remake High and Low. I think maybe if Spike Lee wanted a cash grab, I think he could find a cash grab that was grabbier than that, I suppose. So, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on all of this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.